Welcome to Traces of Trauma, where we explore the quiet echoes that trauma leaves behind and the gentle path of healing. I'm your host, Brian Arbor, inviting you to join me in conversations that honor our stories, our struggles, and the strength and grace it takes to move forward. This is a safe space to listen, reflect, and connect in the shared journey beyond our trauma. Welcome back, everybody. And with me is Dr. Sailesh Rao. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Sailesh Rao, yes.
Sailesh Rao, great. And a little bit of a non-traditional guest. Why don't I have you introduce yourself and kind of where you see your specialty fits into this kind of conversation?
Yeah, sure, yes. I'm Sailesh Rao. Um, I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called Climate Healers, and we look at collective trauma and eco-anxiety, which is uh, people being worried about the environment and what's going to happen to the world that they're in. And so we talk about the collective story of humanity and how we can tell a story in which we belong exactly as we are and that we are part of this transformation that I call Planet B. So I wrote a book called There is a Planet B about this. I'm a systems engineer by profession, but I got into this because I was looking at the environment as a system. And I realized that it's through stories and games that we collaborate and create this tremendous force that's actually changing the planet.
Hmm, really great. And inside of those stories and games, and as you look at a collective healing,
Mhm.
what have you discovered about uh, both individual trauma and collective trauma?
Yeah, this is uh, fascinating because to me, I was only working on in electrical engineering before I started this. I was working on making chips,
Hmm.
designing chips and making them work. And when I started looking at the environment as a system, and so I realized that we are really like a herd species. It's a herd animal. So we collect together as 8 billion strong. And when we do things together collectively, we become tremendously powerful to the point where we are literally changing the life support systems of the planet. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, if you have the power to change the life support systems of the planet, you have the responsibility for the life support systems of the planet. You know, and so I realized, yeah, we have a responsibility now for the life support systems of the planet, but we are all going in this direction. And that direction was actually dictated by collecting the strength. So we became bigger and bigger, and simultaneously we gathered the strength in technology, using technology and numbers to to be such a force on the planet. Okay. So now it is telling a story that it's not a mistake because we are in this trauma because now we are being told this is a huge mistake and you're at fault. And so it's not just, individuals feel that anxiety about what's happening to the earth. Uh, Collectively also we have become the species that's outside of nature. We have been taken out of nature. We're separated from nature. And that's the story we tell. And we are the only species that doesn't belong on Earth. That's the kind of story we are telling. That if we take human beings out, the planet will be fine. So that creates this collective trauma,
Hmm.
as if we are the species that doesn't belong on Earth. And I'm trying to tell a story in which we say, no, 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 no. We have been gathering the strength so that we can become the caretaker species of the planet. And so now that we have understood our strength, now we can say, okay, we belong. We belong as the caretaker species of the planet.
Hmm.
And so we have never been separate from nature because separation is a delusion, which is one of the foundations of yoga, in Hinduism.
Hmm.
Separation is a delusion. And yoga is about removing that delusion so that we become connected again.
Hmm.
So the story we tell at Climate Healers is that the earth needed a caretaker species. The earth needed homeostasis. And so she gave us the strength. So she gave us control of fire so we can build this technology. And now she's saying, now that you understand you have the strength, now let's do this. Let's create this homeostasis on earth so that all creatures and all life can thrive.
Hmm.
Now, that's a story in which you belong and in which you now have a responsibility. You have work to do. And so that will help us overcome our eco anxiety as well,
It's really
knowing that responsibility.
interesting. There's I can just hear a parallel for like generational, like family inherited trauma,
Exactly.
right? There's a system there of um, development and strengthening and a gaining of momentum. Uh, Often those traumas compound over time and
Hmm.
um, morph. So, what started out as abuse in one generation may or may not continue to be the same form of abuse or the same type of trauma 3 or 4 generations later, but there's still impact.
Hmm.
Um, and those of us who are like awake and aware of um, that kind of handed down inherent uh, breaking down of the system and feel a sense of, hey, wait, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. Like, this
Hmm.
isn't how family's supposed to be. This isn't how my environment is supposed to be. Um, our families need us
Hmm.
to become whole,
Right.
not necessarily like we need out for us to be whole and we don't fit and we don't belong, although those defense mechanisms certainly have a place. But in uh, looking at the whole of the system rather than like individual preservation,
Hmm.
and not to suggest like sacrifice or like walking back into a situation where you're physically or mentally, emotionally in danger.
Hmm.
Um, those systems, those inherent compound traumas that cross generation need they need all of us together
Right.
to resolve. And one person shouting into the group isn't what causes that profound healing.
Hmm.
Um, but it's more the efforts of each one person doing what they're capable of.
Right. Absolutely. To me, this is the oxygen mask rule, I call it the oxygen mask rule. We each have to become whole. We each have to heal ourselves, embrace the new story that we belong, that we've always belonged, and then heal ourselves, make ourselves whole, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And then we are capable of healing others. We
Mm,
are capable of bringing others along. And not just other human beings, it's all life. Imagine the trauma in other species.
mm,
They have gone through where we have separated families. We have considered them to be numbers, right? And we cull them. So think of the hard trauma that they have gone through too. and they also have generational trauma. Now we are discovering that it is the same mechanism in the brains that and the genes that keep passing on from one generation to the next. So it's so we as a species have access to everything. We are so powerful that we have access to everything. And if we are not whole, how would they be whole?
Yeah.
How would they become whole? So it's that we have a responsibility now to the entire planet, to all life, to take on this role, embrace this role as the caretaker species of the planet, which is exactly what religions have been talking about, for thousands of years, that we are the caretaker species. And then we can create a I mean, we create an environment where things are improving year by
Hmm.
year, not getting worse year by year. You know,
Yeah. And as that, again, stepping out from the individual to the larger view, that oxygen mask rule applies again,
Mm,
right? Like as a as a collective, as a species, we need to heal ourselves
correct.
so that we can be the caretakers and the solution
Hmm.
that our planet needs,
Right.
right? As um, it takes forming relationships that are centered around healing and growth.
Yes,
And every connection, every like individual addition to the collective that's focused on that healing matters.
absolutely.
So it's not like there's a giant flash and then all of a sudden we're all changed. It's like it's a slow, delicate, careful work sometimes.
It begins with the flash of intention.
Hmm.
It's a flash that says, we are going to do this. We are going to come together and do this collectively. That's an intention that can happen in a flash. But then the process,
Yeah,
it takes time. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It takes time. I can tell you how it happened to me. It's like,
sure.
yeah, I was in the same state that back in 2009, I thought take human beings out and the planet will be fine. You know, leave us in and the planet dies. And so we are the only species that was a mistake that nature made. Okay. So that was the story I had internalized because I was in this sanctuary in the Western Ghats of India. It was a sanctuary started by a couple from New Jersey, of all places, who had gone there, who had created this beautiful sanctuary. Uh, it's still there. It's called the Sai Sanctuary. And I was in that sanctuary, and I had this sense of perfection. There was so much life that at night I couldn't even hear my sister talk because there was such a loud din of insects around me and animals. And so I asked the owner of the sanctuary, Pamela, how did you make this happen? She said, oh, we did nothing. We just bought this coffee plantation. We tore down the fences and we gave it back to the animals. And the animals did everything. So they would just come and eat and drop their seeds. And they just had to feel that they were safe. So I said, so how did you make them feel safe? She said, oh, we had to patrol the land and make sure that no human being comes inside. And at that point, I felt so small, as if I don't even belong in my own home,
Hmm.
because I was born in that forest, just 200 kilometers from where I was standing. And so I felt like, we are the mistake. Humans are the only mistake that nature made. Everything else is perfect. And then the next year, my granddaughter was born. And when my granddaughter was born, I came to see her when she was a month old and held her in my arms for the first time. And she looked up at me and she smiled. And it was this knowing smile, as if she was looking into my mind and saying, "What do you mean I don't belong? I belong exactly as I am, and you haven't understood me." Immediately, a flash went through me as if, my God, she's right. And I have to now go back and look at everything from the perspective that we belong exactly as we are. We are just as perfect as all the other beings in that forest. So I started going back through the scientific literature from that perspective. And you know what? Everything started making sense. It just click, 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 clicked. And I could come up with this story in which we belong exactly as we are. We are in the process of becoming the caretaker species. So we have this whole epic in Hinduism called the Mahabharata.
Mm.
And that epic, is a battle between two sets of cousins, the bad guys and the good guys. Right? It's typical epic stuff. But among the good guys, it's just five cousins, and I mean five brothers, okay,
Hmm.
who are fighting the battle. And the eldest brother is associated with justice. He knows what is the right thing to do. The second brother, eldest brother's name is Yudhishthira. The second brother's name is Bhima, and he's associated with strength. He's the strongest man. And the third brother is courage, Arjuna. And courage is what God talks to in the epic and convinces him to fight the battle. And then comes Nakula and Sahadeva, who represent kindness and compassion. So, what they were trying to tell us in the epic is that first you have to know what you're doing. What is your role? Then comes gathering the strength to implement that role.
Mm.
Then comes the courage to implement that role. So now we have the strength. We started doing this 10,000 years ago, this new way of living, maybe agriculture and technology and so on. That started 10,000 years ago. And then we gathered the courage over the last 10,000 years. And now we have to gather the strength over the past 10,000 years. Now we have to have the courage to make that transformation
Mm.
to kindness and compassion for all life, you
Yeah.
know?
The we it there's something in the experience we go through until we get to that tipping point that um as challenging and you know I would say brutal as that process can be or has been, whatever that looked like for each of us, it doesn't feel like we're gaining strength.
Mm,
it it can feel like we're being broken down.
right.
um all those, it doesn't, if I were to look at the planet and look at the state of humanity, if I were to look at the state of the United States right now, I wouldn't say, oh, we're gathering strength as like a community.
Right.
Like, that's not how I would describe this world. If I were to look at, um, my experiences and the things I went through, um, growing up inside my family, the things I went through in the army, the things
Mm,
I've been through in my career, um, the, you know, I wouldn't automatically think, oh, I was just building strength. But uh, that hammering that I endured,
mhm,
because I'm still here, drawing breath, um, kind of like folding and forging steel. Like that
mhm,
hammering did produce some endurance, some perspective. It, uh, you know, I have a durability that I didn't have before I was tested and tested and tested and tested.
Right.
Um, and it there there does come that flash where we realize, okay, if we want change, like we've got to do something. Like I have to do something now.
Hmm.
Um, to to cause that desired outcome. I've got to do something to cause my healing. I've got to do something to change the
Right.
way this is. Um, and I think often that courage starts in that flash,
Mm.
and maintaining it is the real trick.
Right.
Um, a insight has a particular energy to it. Um, but showing up all the moments after, um, and staying engaged in that process and everything it demands from us, um, that's where the next challenge is.
Right.
So,
Right.
what would you say about the having seen I'm committed, my eyes are open, I'm committed to another way. I don't know what that way looks like. I don't know what it's going to take, but
Right.
I'm unwilling to continue the way I've been.
Right.
Um, how do we keep that alive and like convince ourselves that we are moving forward?
Mm. Yeah. Great question. I can only answer by saying how I did it
Yeah.
myself, you know? Um, so the American College of Lifestyle Medicine had come up with this 8 risky behaviors that are responsible for 90% of the healthcare costs in the world. Okay. So the
Hmm.
entire healthcare economy, 90% of it is from these 8 risky behaviors that are responsible for 15 chronic conditions. And that's the 90% of the healthcare costs, addressing those chronic conditions. And so the 8 risky behaviors they identified was number one, poor diet, which Dr. McDougall told me that's half the cost is right there, the poor diet. You
Hmm.
know. Second was lack of exercise. Third was smoking. Fourth was lack of health screening. That is, you don't go to the doctors regularly, so they don't, so you have diseases that grow in you which you don't even know about
Hmm.
until it manifests itself. And then fifth is poor stress management. And sixth is lack of sleep. Seventh is poor standard of care, where you go to a hospital and they treat you for the wrong thing and you get the wrong medicines.
Yeah.
And the eighth is excessive alcohol or drug consumption. Okay.
Yeah.
So so I said, okay, I'm going to take those 8 risky behaviors and do the exact opposite.
Hmm.
So I adopted a healthy vegan diet, a plant-based diet, okay, whole food plant-based diet. And I mean, I'm not, 100% whole food plant-based, but that's what I do at home. When I go out, I may indulge. But every time I indulge, I get feedback from my body saying, "What the heck did you do?"
Mm.
So, so I now know that that's the right way to eat, for at least for my body. So I adopted a whole food plant-based vegan diet. From lack of exercise, I do yoga and strength training every day. So I basically do 10 sun salutations, and then I do sun salutations are exercises, the poses that stretch and compress every part of my body. So I do 10 of those. And then I do a 6 minute plank, to hold my strength. And from smoking, I started doing conscious breathing during my yoga. Okay. And from um, lack of health screening, I do this every day. That's my regular health routines. I do the exact same thing every day. And I also may, go and check up on my blood work once a year to make sure that I'm fine.
Hmm.
Then from poor stress management, I do meditation every day. It's the opposite of stress. That's the better stress management. And then I make sure that I get enough sleep every day from
Hmm.
lack of sleep. And then from poor standard of care, I say the opposite is a sense of purpose. So I dedicated my life to climate healers, and I'm now, basically working on this day in and day out. Okay? And finally, from uh, excessive drug or alcohol consumption, it's contact with nature. So those are my 8 healthy habits that I adopted
Mm.
to heal myself. And simultaneously now, when you heal yourself, you notice that other people are now copying you and they're coming along. It becomes a gathering momentum. So I I talk about this, to my community, and I wrote this book called "There Is a Planet B." It's a planet in which things are getting better
Hmm.
every day, and so you have to look at everything upside down to make that happen, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I have the world upside down behind me. And and the book is also printed upside down. So when you open the book, as you see it, you'll see it's upside down. So you have to flip it around and read it. So it's sort of, it's mentally, we have to be able to say, I'm ready to say I don't know
Mm.
about everything that I thought I knew and look at everything afresh
Yeah.
and discard anything that doesn't make sense anymore and uh, enhance anything that still makes sense.
Yeah.
Adhere to that. So that's the kind of transformation that we need to be prepared to do. And it becomes once you start doing it and then you notice other people coming along, then it becomes a gathering momentum. Now we have had um, I organize these quarterly convergences, through climate healers. And we have a whole team of people now who are helping us do that. And these convergences help people come along. And I can see everybody getting better and better and better at this.
Yeah. I love that. I love that list.
Yeah.
And I hate that list, right? It
Yeah.
I don't think it would be a surprise to anybody what
Right.
those 8 risky behaviors are. When we look at um when we look at people who are going through dealing like they're dealing with trauma or they're just impacted,
Mhm.
um these are some of those flags. You know, a poor diet, lack of exercise, like smoking,
Right.
lack of screening. Like there's a this whole list is both the problem and the key.
Mhm.
So what you did rather than taking that list and trying to fix the broken things, you found ways to engage in uh like a healing polar opposite
Mhm.
that work for you. So and I imagine that didn't all happen in a day, right? It took
Yeah.
something to find the diet that was right for you. It probably took trying some things and discovering what wasn't for you.
Right.
Um, you know, I lack of exercise is the one that really hits me. Um, I've I have yet to find a method of exercise that I am willing and excited and like grateful to engage in.
Mhm.
And the kind of automatic reaction to looking at some of these is, okay, I have to have a perfect diet. I have to go to the gym. I personally haven't had a problem, dealing with smoking, but like, lack of health screening, there's also like a lack of access
Mhm.
to
Right.
health screening. And, so finding ways to manage stress, it's not like living a perfect and stress-free life.
Mhm.
Getting more sleep, getting better quality sleep. What does that look like? It didn't look like necessarily getting the perfect bed and creating the perfect room and finding the right temperature and getting the blackout curtains and all the like your approach wasn't about perfection. It was about improvement.
Mhm.
And it was a personal, like tailored from yourself approach.
Right.
And I think the thing that's so powerful about that is it's your plan.
Right.
It's not the plan that um like the collective group mind would issue. Like it's not a blanket prescription. Uh, it's not the, oh, I make sure I get at least 8 hours of sleep that everybody could
Right.
just, oh, that's what we're supposed to have. We all know. Oh, we all need to exercise. We should be lifting weights or like running. We need to like de-stress. It's like, okay, great, but how? And you found ways to engage in those um risky behaviors that suit your nature. So the uh the response to excessive alcohol or drug consumption was time in nature,
Right.
right? All of these um, risky behaviors point toward a, a type of dissociation from ourselves and from what's happening around us.
Right.
Um, and they produce some level of self-harm
Yeah.
when we engage in them.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely. No, the self-harm, it comes from this phase where we have been gathering our strength.
yeah.
So it's a system that is driving us to do that. System that disconnects children. When they go to school, they get disconnected from all this, their true nature, so to speak, because
Hmm.
we educate them. You know? It's not a learning process, it's an education process. It's about telling them this is where we are. This is the what we are all supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
You're all supposed to be gathering strength and getting and creating better and better technologies.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'd say we have done enough of that. Now we need to be moving on to doing the next phase, which is to come back into connection with nature and start healing the planet, healing ourselves and the planet. So
Hmm.
it's that transition. We are in that transition phase. I call this a birthing process. So
Yeah.
we are birthing a new version of ourselves, you know, just like the agricultural revolution was a birthing process as well. And we said, okay, we are not going to run around hunting anymore. We're going to just plant these crops and we'll just stay here and tend to them and you'll eat from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every major transformation in human history has been like that. It's like a birthing process. It's a different way of doing things. So this phase where we are now seeing what we are doing to the planet, we are now observing it through satellites and so on. And we know that, we are causing a lot of harm, right? So we now know that. So now it's saying, okay, how do we now transform so that we can start healing the planet? Because it's the only planet we know that supports life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's our adult phase, it's like a it's like a bar mitzvah for humanity, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Good. And, for our listeners, I would offer that any any step we take uh inside those risky behaviors for ourselves or in our communities,
Hmm.
because again, those risky behaviors kind of point toward an individual, right?
Right.
But if you think about, okay, what does poor diet look like in a system?
Ah,
What does it look
good.
like as a family? Like,
Right.
what are we ingesting
Yeah.
that we shouldn't be, maybe, that would lend itself toward the healing of that generational trauma? Oh, okay, cool. Maybe we could alter what we intake as a
Right.
group.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be this overbearing, radical departure, like a complete state change. It can
Hmm.
be an incremental
Right.
course correction
Right.
that's quiet, that just kind of brings people along.
Yeah.
And it starts with us, right? My
Yeah.
my lack of health screening
Hmm.
looks like actually looking in the mirror.
Mm.
I noticed I just don't. I get out of the shower and there's this big, like, kind of across the vanity, this like whole wall is this mirror, and like I just see pale flesh.
Mm.
I don't see me. I don't see, like, I don't look at my body. I don't check. I don't assess. I wait for the fog to dissipate enough to like run a comb through my hair. And even then, I don't look at my own face.
Mm.
So that lack of screening for me, I'd say it has started with looking at myself
Mm. Hmm.
in the mirror
Right.
and noticing what I see. Um, and it's not like 10 minutes naked in front of a full length mirror. That would be like, that's too much. I can't take it. But it's started where it
Mm.
started, right? And there are more and more habits we can build. Um, the poor stress management looks like catching myself with diminishing self-talk.
Mm.
I haven't managed to find a work environment where stress is not applied. I haven't managed to step into like groups of people where everyone always has my back and wants like the greatest good for me. I haven't landed myself in a financial situation where there's nothing to worry about, but I can notice and like let go of diminishing self-talk. All those other things still need work,
Right.
right? Um, so there's when I think about your book, there is a planet B. Um, and throughout this conversation, there's like the strong presence of a plan.
Mm.
Like it takes a plan, and it doesn't have to be the right plan or a perfect plan,
Right.
but like pausing long enough to just have a plan.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. That's the whole idea behind this Planet B, is that we are going to start that process, and then of creating a different planet, so to speak, where things are getting better every year as opposed to getting worse every year. And then we are willing to basically take stock every now and then and see, do we need to course correct or not,
Hmm.
as we're getting there. So it's not that we have a perfect plan that we are going to begin with. It's just a plan to start to do
Yeah.
that work. Yeah.
And that sense of disconnection, um, I think is very widespread.
Mhm.
The, you speak on eco anxiety, and while that can, and definitely apply to the strain put upon the systems of our planet,
Mhm.
it's it's also, there's an environment in this technological age. There's an environment uh, where something's off
Mhm.
with the degree to which, as a species, we're engaged in uh, like social media
Mhm.
and impersonal mass validation of our individual self.
Right.
There's, and it doesn't take a startling realization to still be, to like be impacted by what's off in that environment.
Yeah.
You know, uh I had no idea I dealt with anxiety at 40, I think it was 41,
Mhm.
when somebody said, "Brian, that's an anxiety attack." Like a physical, like I flush, like I had like electric tingles and like was
Mhm.
like strumming my fingers. Like there's like a heavy swirling sensation in my chest. I have too
Mhm.
many thoughts all at the same time and don't know how to respond or reply in the moment that's gonna have the best outcome for this situation and lay the foundation for like forward momentum and success. Just like frozen and I'd have that experience fairly constantly
Oh, wow.
throughout the day, and it
Mhm.
would intensify into peaks, but it was never really gone. Um, my system lived in that state.
Mhm.
Uh, my if you think about the body, like, my liver, my kidneys, my my
Right.
everything, um, wasn't doing its job while consciously thinking about anxiety. It
Mhm.
just lived in that state. Um, the same happens in families where generations of uh, neglect, abuse, like various forms of trauma exist. The same happens in a society or on a planet where we are at the effect of the environment we're in. Um, and it can occur like it's invisible because it's our normal. And we don't realize that our experience is of something that could be better, right?
Yeah.
It takes recognizing that, wait, it doesn't have to be this way. Like, oh wait, there there really could be this other planet Earth. Like, oh wait, there really could be this other experience of family.
Mhm.
like, wait, maybe it really is possible that I could have a different relationship to me, that I could think something else about who I am than what
Hmm.
I currently think about myself.
Right.
Um, and often that's a really big step to take.
Yeah. For me, it was, I happened to come across a video of James Baldwin way back, in 2010. And he said in the interview that the greatest gift his dad gave him was that he told him, what other people think of you is none of your business. And it clicked for me. Wow, that's such a great way to live. If what other people think of you is none of your business, you suddenly become free. Because I realized the system. So we live in a system, you know. Systems is what makes us powerful as a species. Because when we live in a system, we are all coordinating our actions in that system.
Yeah.
And that's how we become powerful. So we live in a system in which, through approval, they make you come along with the narrative, the dominant narrative, whatever that narrative is, right? So the narrative is, yeah, you have to have a job to make a living. If you don't have a job, you're not going to get enough money and you're going to starve to death. These are all narratives that we put in place to make people do things that they wouldn't otherwise do,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of coercion that happens in the system in the current system, because the system to me is designed around domination. It's
Yeah.
about acquisition of power. And so that's the whole currency system is based on that. So I was working on the environment, and and then when I heard that from James Baldwin, I said, okay, whatever I do, I should just ignore what other people think of me. I should just do what I think is right and keep going, you know. And so that freed me
Yeah.
from that social media and from that likes, number of dislikes. Lots of people dislike what I say. It's okay. To me, it doesn't matter. You know, it's their problem. I say, if you don't dislike, why are you bothering with me? Just do your own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
So,
yeah, there's something to be said for discovering our own strength.
mm,
The focus on what happened, the focus on what created this situation we find ourselves in. Um, I mean, it's not a waste to look there.
mhm,
Um, but when we look there without also looking at what strength did we gain, we miss part of the big picture. Um, when we look at when we take social media, for example, and the great sense of uh, disconnected engagement that is pervasive,
right.
there's so much power in that system. Like, we've created a way to disperse a message widely.
Right.
There's a it's like there's an opportunity there if we
Mhm,
were to step into responsibility,
right.
right? The and I think you said this at the beginning of this conversation, right? Like, there's when we have this strength, this power as a collective, it then becomes our responsibility
Mhm,
to use it well.
right.
Um, and just as like teenagers stepping into their strength as a like grown sized person for the first time,
Mhm,
don't use that responsibility well, Um, there's a there's a growth curve. There's an opportunity, and it's part of why I'm here creating this podcast, right? I'm interested in sharing what I discover. I'm interested in creating a platform for others to share what they're discovering, for our growth to shift from being a vast network of individual challenges to a vast network of shared experience,
Hmm.
so that where one lifts themselves up, others are lifted also.
Correct.
Um,
Yes.
and there's something to experiencing that shift into responsibility at a personal level rather than a responsibility that gets placed upon our shoulders like a yoke.
Yes.
So I was a first son of three boys,
Hmm.
uh, in a household with a single mother who worked three jobs and had a string of uh, unsuccessful relationships,
Hmm.
uh, without, um, there wasn't a lot of stability. There wasn't a lot of nurturing. There wasn't a lot of uh, healthy example. Um, and my relationship to responsibility was that it's a burden. And it's
Hmm.
taken into my 40s to find the kind of responsibility that is my joy.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I keep throughout this conversation flashing back to Spider-Man
Hmm.
and Peter Parker and Uncle Ben. With great power comes great responsibility. And the beginning of that is like, you know, how dare you? Don't put that on me. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know what this is like.
Right.
And eventually settling into that power, settling into that strength. Um, when I came back from war, I was not interested in conversations for, you know, how that experience had enriched me.
Hmm.
Uh, I was a very loud, dramatic, like, fuck you, leave me alone.
Hmm.
You have no idea. And it's taken everything it's taken for me to find myself in another place about that particular experience.
Right.
I said to my aunt recently, if I had it to do over again, I wouldn't avoid that experience. And she said, "Oh, good for you, but I can't. I would wish that to have never been part of your life. Like, I just can't." It's like, okay, and that's all right.
Hmm.
But over here, it forged something in me. It gave me a particular strength, of spirit, a strength of character, and a determination. Like, what I believed about the world was so heavily challenged, but there were also pieces of that experience that showed me how right I was about my beliefs in who we are as humanity.
Hmm.
Um, going through everything that I've been through brings me to this place. I wouldn't have these relationships in my life. I wouldn't have my partner right now. I wouldn't have the family I have right now, like the healing in my relationship with my parents and my siblings is uh it's a function of what I've been through and what we've been through individually and together.
Right.
Like the the state of our planet is both a crisis and a forge
Right.
for what's to come.
Right.
And it's hot and sweaty and hard work standing in front of a forge
Mhm.
and actually using it to produce something of value. And when we're in the experience of panic and trying to escape the flames of that intense heat, there's one result. And when we're standing with determination in the face of it, shaping something of value, there's another result. Um, and if we have the strength to face our trauma and identify what's of worth and use that to make a difference.
Right.
People who've been through abuse almost always have a heightened sense of empathy,
Mm.
an
Yes.
understanding of others, and often a desire to help. Now, it's often paired with self neglect. Like, I won't get out of bed and take care of myself, but I'll get out of bed to take care of you.
Mm.
Um, there's power in that desire, willingness, and capacity to push beyond our limits to care for others. That's a strength. And it's a strength that has a cost. It took whatever it took for us to get our planet into this state, to took whatever it took for our families to arrive at the state they're in now. Um, it took lots of terrible things for me to be the human being I am today. And hidden in those terrible experiences, there is still something wonderful to be extracted. Um, I in my episode intros, I talk about the strength, courage, and grace it takes to move forward.
Hmm.
We may be broken, but there's perfection in the way we're broken, you know,
Right.
and there it takes a plan. It just takes a plan.
Right. It's a system. It's a plan. A system is a set of processes designed to meet a certain objective, whatever I'm a systems engineer. That's why I bring it back to systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and there's for sure a default way that we think about engineers. So like analytical
Right.
and and process and like
Right.
design oriented and the uh often it comes at the expense of relatability.
Yeah.
Um but there's as you've shown throughout this conversation, there's value in that perspective. Uh, whether you're engineering a rocket
Hmm.
or a satellite or a system of roads for a community, um, or you're engineering a shift in society,
Hmm.
like having a, a plan has value,
Right.
and bringing that engineering mind to the state of our systems um, produces something of value.
Yeah. No, it's a great perspective, Brian.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you for that.
right.
It is, it's that shift in path, the turning around. I call it like making a U-turn. We've been going one way for the last 26 miles and we have to finish a marathon. And you
Right.
have to make that U-turn to get to the finish line.
This has been a really phenomenal conversation. Thank you for joining us. And for anybody who's listening in, check the show notes. There's an offer from Dr. Rao, a PDF of his book, There Is a Planet B. If you're interested in connecting with him or engaging in his work at climatehealers.org, there's more to discover. So read the book, reach out and connect if you find you're interested in what he's up to or looking to have a conversation. So thank you so much for joining us here today. Please take a moment to like and subscribe to the podcast. And you can find more Traces of Trauma on Facebook and Substack. Thanks so much, everyone. See you next
Thanks,
time.
Brian.